Hello, everyone. It is Claire, and it's another astrology forecast. And we're going to talk about October of 2025 astrologically. Before we do the usual kind of order of operations, I'm going to talk about September a little bit first, do some reflections. I have a few things I forgot that I'm going to mention. There's usually something I forgot. And then we'll move on more to my general points about October. And then we will get more into October details itself. Overall, I mean, just a little headline. November is a little bit more interesting to me. And I feel like October and December they look like constructive. Like there's cool astrology stuff sometimes. And like perhaps it might be hopefully a bit I'm so superstitious, of course. I'm here. But I don't dare say, it'll be, one of the better parts of the year. The first half of 2025, I know everyone's sick of hearing me say how much I think it sucked, but the first half of the year is done. We are so done with the first half of 2025. So already my threat level, kind of just to zoom out, my threat level on like the next 3 months isn't super high. We just got through the eclipses. We just got through a Mars Pluto square. So overall, feeling pretty good about the month ahead. I have some things I'm excited about. I did put a horoscope up on my website. I'm very late on my newsletter. Usually I like to have my newsletter out by the time the sun is moving into the next sign, which is usually around the 22nd. However, I did not, it's coming. It's coming in the next couple days. But I'm just going to tell people here, I already did a written rising sign horoscope this month. I didn't do a video one about anything new, but I did talk about Venus and Libra that's coming up. And that's a bit of a sweet note for the month ahead. So I wanted to drill down a little bit into that, tell people what areas of life they can expect to run a little bit more smoothly in the second half of October. So you can actually find that piece of writing on my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. And you don't have to even read the beginning. You can just scroll down to the second half and it says, here's the life topics that might be good this month. And it's very simple. So feel free to check that out. What else? I do have content-wise my eclipse video that I put up last month. It's old news, but we are still, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. We only had our last one 6 months ago. And so, if you're looking to reflect, to see what you can see about what happened in September, you can go check out that eclipse video that I just did about Pisces and Virgo. So that's on my channel. What else? Announcements wise, geez, I did a piece of writing. Uh, my newsletter isn't out yet, and everything is the same with my practice. I'm still seeing people full time. So if you can get a reading with me, if you would like, that's the best way to support my work. www.aligninglightastrology.com/booking. And that's where all of my services are. There's a plethora of information on my website about myself, my services. If you have any questions, I have an FAQ section. And finally, you can email me at aligninglighastro@gmail.com if you have any questions. That's how you reach me. Um, yeah, I don't think there's anything else new. I know I saw at least one person in the chat. Let me check in and see. Oh, there are people here. Hello, everyone. Hello. I was actually in the chat before I was even broadcasting. I'm finally getting good at technology. Hello, KP. Hello, Miss Joy. Hello, Ashera. Hello. Nice to see you all. Thank you for joining me live. It's always fun when people are here. And then as well, I'm not going to go through every single date of the month, but if I skip over a date that you're really interested in, just let me know in the chat. You can say, hey, what about the 13th or whatever? And at the end of the month, we have Halloween. We're going into spooky season. I have all my little skeletons everywhere. Got one back there. I should have a bingo board. I spy the skeletons. Oh, it's spooky season. What? Um, they're doing a yoga pose. I have a Halloween report. And It's interesting because this year it's actually on a weekend. So the 31st of October, and I'm going to talk about the 1st of November because people are probably going to be having parties on the 1st of November. Oh, and last thing, I wore my Compost Happens t-shirt for Scorpio season because Mars is in Scorpio and I have Mars in Scorpio and it's a Scorpio time. And who's the king of compost? Mars and Scorpio, for sure. We're transmuting. And then, too, oh, let me actually, if you scroll down my shirt, there's a flower coming out of it. So, what happens after all of the difficulty of Scorpio? Something comes out of it. That's beautiful. So I think that is all of my non-astrological shenanigans for the month. The best way to use this information today. This is something I don't talk about a lot. Usually I bring it up in my rising sign horoscopes quite a bit as the best way to use this info. Usually I'm mentioning rising signs. So I'm very a rising sign centric astrologer. If you don't know your rising sign, you can always go to astro.com, Astro-seek. It's like astro-seek.com. Those are really great websites. Channy Nicholas's website is really great for generating your chart, and you put in your birth data, and it tells you everything you want to or need to know about it. And that's going to be how I orient myself. So that's thing one is know your rising sign. And thing two, and this is going to be a little bit more advanced, but just this is another kind of zoom out thing when we're doing transits, when we're looking at especially, the whole sky. I mean, I like to follow the moon. If people haven't figured it out about me already, I really just kind of follow the moon around for the most part in my forecasts. I've thought about changing the name of this to the Moon Report kind of because of my name, but also because I'm really focusing on the moon. I am bringing in other aspects. I bring in plenty of other aspects, but long story short, there's a bunch of planets up here. There's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. There's like 12 if you count Chiron in here. There's a bunch of planets. They're not. So here's some big philosophical note from the Hellenistic astrology tradition. This is probably not true for all astrologies. I don't know. But for the kind of astrology that I do, that most people in like Western astrology land are doing, whether or not they realize it, one of the big philosophical components from it is that not all planets are awake and doing stuff all the time. So some years, say Mercury, might be kind of dormant, for lack of better words, almost like asleep. And then other years when there are other timing techniques that go beyond transits. We've got annual profections, zodiacal releasing, other decennials. We've got other things that might activate a certain planet at a certain period of life. And so some years, Mercury retrogrades, for instance, might be more loud or prominent or noticeable for people. Other years, it might not register anything. So it's really important to know. And each year from birthday to birthday, for us, we have anywhere from 1 to 3-ish planets that are alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic that we want to really focus on and prioritize when we're doing transit work. Most people on the internet are not talking about any of this. If you look up like the note, and this is okay, now I'm getting off onto a tangent, but that's okay. Usually I save this stuff for my question and response, question and answer times. And no shade to any other astrologers on YouTube. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. But I often don't hear anyone talking regularly about the prioritization, and I don't. I'm one of them. I'm not talking about this regularly. The prioritization of planets based on these activations that a lot of, regular folks aren't going to know about. And so as I'm up here painting a picture every month of, how things are going to look from day to day, for some of you, what I say is going to matter. For some of you, it's not. And then my concern is that I am just helping people paint a picture of hope or fear that is kind of irrelevant and isn't even really like relevant to that particular person. But you wouldn't know that unless you looked at their specific birth chart and their specific timing. And so this is where it gets really important to, if you're serious about learning about astrology and tracking it in time, like tracking it, in the moment. I would highly say invest in buying a book, learning it yourself, or hire a professional to help you out to know just at least once a year, like which planets, when I'm listening to all these YouTube astrologers, or whoever, podcasts, I need to know which planets are important to follow. So for me this year, for instance, I have Saturn and Venus, who are very, very prominent, and Jupiter a little bit. Next year, I have Mars. So it's going to be a little different of a story when it comes to transits for me. So, all to say, there's a lot of nuance that we lose out on in this setting. This setting is not amenable to these nuances. And so, really, from this more educated place, actually take what I say with a grain of salt, a very healthy grain of salt, unless you know who your time lords are. If you know those planets to pay attention to, then you can take whatever I say as you want. If you're not sure, take this stuff with a grain of salt and don't get too worried about stuff. And if you are worried, email me. Of course. That's why I give out my email here. People don't seem to, people don't bother me with it. So, yeah, don't feel like you're bothering me. Okay, I think that's the end of my rant on timing. I hope that made sense to anyone. Okay. Yeah, someone's in a Libra third house perfection year. So they're really looking forward to Venus being in good shape this October. Yeah, exactly. So then that's going to be even more juicy for you. And me, actually. I just realized that. I don't always watch my own astrology because I'm I'm too busy sometimes. But yeah, that's going to be good for me too. Ha, nice. Okay, so let's talk a bit about what I missed last month, and then we'll get into a little bit about the next month. So last month I forgot to talk embarrassingly about the equinoxes, which is kind of funny. It took me like 3 weeks. I realized it like a few days ago. I was like, wow, I didn't even mention them. I think I talked about Sun going into Libra, but I just failed to, mention one of the most important things that we have just reached the point of the year where we have the same amount of light and dark. We have the same amount of daylight and nighttime. And if you are in the northern hemisphere, now we are doing our march into the extremes of darkness, where we will meet that extreme at the solstice. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, that means that now you're doing that march toward the extreme of brightness and sunlight in your summertime, in a few months. So, happy equinox, everyone, for those who celebrate. Hope everyone's enjoying whatever season they're in to the best of their ability. Hello, Cosmic Girl. Welcome. Nice to see familiar faces. So that was pretty much all I was going to say about it. We have equal light and dark. Happy equinoxes. But yeah, I missed that. We had eclipses, and it has felt like 84 years since last month. I presume partially because of these eclipses. It's a pretty dramatic month, at least here in the States, seemingly a lot of places. So again, on the 7th of September, we had an eclipse, a lunar eclipse, a full moon one. And then our next one was on the 21st. So that just happened 6 days ago. That last new moon we had was an eclipse in Virgo. And so these were across the Pisces Virgo axes. Again, I made a rising sign horoscope about that. You can check out at my channel elsewhere. But now we are out of the eclipse. We're getting out of the eclipse window here, depending on who you ask. I think we're pretty much done with it. And we're going to be moving on to some non-eclipse regular lunations. We're going to have a full moon this month in Aries. And yeah, right? I'll check myself before I wreck myself. Yeah, it's a full moon in Aries and a new moon in Libra. I think I short-circuited because our last eclipse cycles were in Aries and Libra, and I'm like, no, we're done with eclipses there. We don't have eclipses there anymore. So yeah, we'll talk about those lunations. Mars has been in Libra. That I have not super enjoyed. I think it's been kind of, and again, this is more United States centric in terms of the news here, but there's been a lot of arguing about what's appropriate in terms of empathy and compassion and what is proper and appropriate to say at certain times about certain events. And it's been just it's felt like walking on eggshells all month. It usually everything always kind of feels like that to me, maybe. But yeah, Mars and Libra, it has been very much like people arguing. I'm so happy it's over. No offense if you have this in your chart, and this is if you have this in your birth chart, you have had your whole life to work with it. Honest or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has this. She's always fighting for justice and all this stuff. So it can be great for that, but it can also be conflict around etiquette. And I know like Libra, one of the cool things about Libra is like that they are about what is fair, ethical, reciprocal, justice, all that good stuff. But that can kind of all of like the rules of social engagement can tip over or get distorted into this weird, rigid etiquette place that I don't love with Libra. So yeah, glad that's done. Uh, Done arguing having conflict about Libra stuff, I guess, for the meantime. So we got through that. That was interesting. And then the final kind of bigger thing that we had in September was the Mars Pluto square, which I mean, it's still kind of it's separating. It's pretty close by degree, but it's for all intents and purposes done, degree wise. And that was from like September 23rd, September 24th. So if anyone had any days that were a bit more, I don't know, whether it's just a bit more intense or tense or busy in kind of a tense way, any buttons being pushed around the 23rd or the 24th, or I mean, at the very worst, Mars and Pluto can be violence, which is what I mentioned last month. It's hard to keep up with the news lines here. I feel like every day has something violent, so it's pretty hard for me to look at the headlines and be like, oh yeah, this was an extra violent day. I would have to look into it. I didn't. But if you had anything that was really difficult or abrasive going on this last week of September. Yeah, and that was one of the more difficult transits for the last quarter of the year. Now, I wasn't extremely like the most high threat level on that one. I wasn't like threat level red because at the same time, we also had two benefics looking at Mars, and that really helped to stabilize Mars. And we had Mars in really good condition in their own sign. And so, all of this meaning that if there's a difficulty in the sky between a couple planets, if the rest of the sky can kind of support it and undergird it and stuff and make it a little bit more stable, sometimes we won't see the worst version of what those two difficult ones are doing. And so hopefully people made it through those that day around the 23rd, 24th, 25th. Okay. Now we're on the other side of it. And is there anything else? Oh, yeah. And then finally, we had Mercury in Virgo for a little while last month. That was nice. I was aware of it because I know astrology. And so I was purposely organizing things here and there. And when I was feeling that impulse, I was like jumping on that wave and riding it, like a boogie board. I'm like, wow, I do actually want to do a spreadsheet. Let's go. And what was actually very cute about it is that my partner, who doesn't know astrology, he was not aware that Mercury was in Virgo. He actually organized all of his records, all of his vinyls, and his spice collection. Can you tell what planet is very prominent in his chart or what signs? He's a very Venusian guy. So, of course, he has a bunch of music records and spices, and he even made a spreadsheet. Well, Mercury was in Virgo. So, there you go. Spreadsheets in Virgo, peanut butter and jelly. I think that was my last fun thing. Yeah, I think that was pretty much my last fun thing. So, I don't know if anyone had anything they wanted to share about September. No pressure. But yeah, if any of those transits seem to speak to you or show up loudly in your life, yes. Yeah, so someone's saying that they're in their nodal return. This eclipse cycle's been rough. Yeah, and depending on kind of where you are in your life, the nodal return can be paired with a lot of other transits that can also be challenging sometimes. So, you know, it's if it's not one thing, it's usually something else. But I think the interesting thing about the nodal return is it's showing you any, and this actually goes for any return. Anytime the sun returns to where it is in the birth chart, for your birthday, or when you have your Mars return, your Venus return, and that planet returns to the same part of the sky that they were when you were born, uh, including the lunar nodes. I think that it's a interesting front row seat to be like, oh, this is what this does in my chart. So whatever is going on right now, better, worse, mixed, or in between, it is, I mean, for what it's worth, I know this is like a sad coach teacher silver lining, but it's like, well, at least you're learning about your birth chart. You're seeing what it does in your birth chart. Yeah, yeah. I'm also in my lunar nodal return. They have returned. I have my North Node in Pisces. And yeah, I'm seeing what that is. I am absolutely seeing what that is. And I'm like, yep, that's what it does in my birth chart, and that's what it's doing now. And as a Hellenistic astrologer, I don't really look at the lunar nodes as benefic, happy, stabilizing elements. So when I'm looking at them, I'm not like thinking like an evolutionary astrologer about it, um, who I also appreciate. I saw one not that long ago to talk about the nodes. So very both and. But if it is rough as a Hellenistic astrologer, I'm like, yes, yep, the nodes. I don't love them. Uh, do not. One thing I did find, so I have mine across my second and my eighth, and sorry, I'm talking about myself a lot today. Um, the second and the eighth houses are about possessions and stuff that is yours. And in between the eclipses, I was going through some of my old possessions and I found an origami dragon that I made once. And if anyone knows about me talking about the lunar nodes, I'm always telling the story about the dragon. And so here's my little eclipse present. I found my origami dragon that I made like a long time ago. I should try to figure out when I made it. I kind of remember. So, Dragon Hole has closed. The portal is closed. All right, someone else is also having similar things. Virgo, Pisces across the second and the eighth, these places of possessions and our material life. Sometimes it gets more abstract than that, but they, their apartment complex had a termite extermination thing. So, yeah, that's interesting. Something getting messed around with your stuff or having to deal with that. Had to take apart all of the organizing system in your house and apply treatment all over the wooden parts. Oh, no. Oh, geez. Okay. And here's another thing too. The eclipses and the nodes, the lunar nodes, really, I think, speak to the blurring of boundaries, the blurring of borders and edges, because it is an edge. It's where the moon starts going either below the sun or above the sun in declination and latitude. But it is this edge, and I've noticed a blurring of boundaries around the eclipses. And so having people come into your home, um, having to move things around, seeing parts of the wall you don't normally see, all of that sounds really eclipsy and unfortunate, but I hope it works out well. I hope it gets remedied. And the last couple, I mean, pretty much any lunation we had actually in Pisces or Virgo, any full or new moon in Pisces or Virgo in 2024 into the first half of 2025. Let me actually show you what I'm talking about. Um, the ruler in Jupiter, they were just not in good shape. So if there was stuff happening, like any kind of lunation in Pisces or eclipse in Pisces, last year Jupiter was not in good shape to manage it. Now, this year, it's a different story, and Jupiter is in much better shape. If there is like some kind of weird blurring of boundary, or the eclipse is just bringing along this next plot point. Now the planet in charge of that is able to weather it much better. We're able to handle it. There's like a remedy for whatever is challenging with the eclipses. So this year I'm much more hopeful about eclipse energy in general, how we're going to handle it. But yeah, thank you for that excellent anecdote. That is such a good anecdote of what can go on. Yeah, I think that's the last of my reflections. Oh, okay, last thing. I can't be a pharmacist and not mention that whole acetaminophen thing, the whole acetaminophen thing in the United States that everyone's correctly ignoring, that happened around that Mars-Pluto square. So, if we're thinking about manipulation, people taking actions in like a controlling or manipulative fashion, that's the worst case with Scorpio. Um, not always going down, and they're not always using their strategic powers for evil, but they can. And I say that I have a Mars in Scorpio, and so does RFK. So and this is violent. And not all violence. I think when I think of violence, a lot of the first things that come to my mind are like, the gore that I've been exposed to and like guns and shooting and stuff like that. But when we think about, especially in water signs, the type of violence that can happen, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's systemic. Sometimes it is verbal or implied, or it gets interesting in a sad way. All the ways that violence can kind of happen in ways that go beyond physical violence. And so I talk about Mars and Pluto in whenever they're in a square or in opposition, any of these like hard 90 or 180 degree things, it can be violent, but and not to like scare you and put a bunch of nightmares in your head, but in order to just analyze and see clearly, what do we mean by violence? What is the spectrum in which that can happen? That is kind of our job to wonder about as astrologers in terms of trying to figure out how could this come out, and then looking at a context and being like, how is this? And I'm like, yeah, actually, making a bunch of parents feel bad about themselves is kind of violent, and making a bunch of people who have a different neurotype question themselves or anything, like anything that's been going on, all that's kind of it's violent in its own complex way. So that happened too. And I didn't comment about it much online because I wanted to wait for a moment where I could be verbal about it, because I think people can take my writing wrong a lot. So I much rather would be here to state it with my voice. But yeah, that was not a great week in general. It's been kind of a tough couple weeks, I think. The good news now is that it's over. And now we have Mars moving away from Pluto. And this is a great segue into some general thoughts for the month ahead in October. I had mentioned last month in September that a lot of planets had to run through, like a lot of planets did a square with Uranus, and then they did this opposition with Neptune. Saturn, as they went around, they had to ping these different aspects like an obstacle course a little bit. And then when planets get to this first part of Scorpio, then they square Pluto. So that's the other part of this kind of supercharged outer planet thing that's been going on. So these are the busier, more active skies that I'm looking for. And a lot of this kind of stuff is behind us, but we still have a few planets that have to go through the Pluto square. That's kind of the next thing. And Venus will do it, but not until the end of October, November. So we've just got a couple Plutonian things this month, and I don't feel like they're as loud or as prominent as the Pluto things of September. So threat level for Pluto things in October is like a yellow orange and not a red, for what that's worth, if anyone's worried about Pluto stuff. Um, Other kind of general things. Oh, and then planets also get to trine Jupiter. So the good news is that as planets are moving through, I mean, pretty much all this Virgo, they have a sextile with Jupiter. And then in Libra, they get to square Jupiter. And then in Scorpio, planets are going to get to have a nice trine with Jupiter. So I'll be naming some of those things too as I see them. And that's more stabilizing, happy energy in general. So there are some difficult things that planets have to go through this month, namely Mercury, Sun, but also some helpful, supportive things all happening at the same time. So that's what's so, I mean, I just keep coming back to these overcoming aspects from benefics, you know, kind of whatever's been happening on this half of the chart from like Cancer through Capricorn. Whatever's going on over there, shenanigans wise, we got a couple planets that have been able to help out and handle it. In 2026, it's not as much the case. We get Mars more in the overhand position, which I don't love as much. So again, like I feel pretty chill about the rest of 2025 for this reason. Um, I guess maybe before I go on into general things, let me do my dates of interest. I am just plodding along very slowly today, so this might be a long one. Sorry, y'all. But let's talk about dates of interest. So we've got on the 4th of October, approximately, is when Mercury is going to be showing up in the evening sky again. So check it out after sunset. First, second week of October, depending on your location, the atmosphere, you should start to be able to see Mercury faintly in the western sky. And then on the 6th of October, we're going to have an Aries full moon. Mercury is also going to enter Scorpio. On the 13th, Venus is going to enter Libra, and Pluto is going to station direct. On the 21st, we'll have a Libra new moon. On the 22nd, the Sun is going to enter Scorpio, and Neptune is going to re-enter Pisces. And on the 29th, Mercury is going to enter Sagittarius. So we've got a few of planets changing signs. We've got a couple outer planet things happening. But other than that, the full and new moon have my interest. And yeah, it's a little bit more chill than last month. So other general notes, but before I do, let me just check in with the chat. Yeah, the blurring of boundaries. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not fun. But sometimes it can be okay. Sometimes it's neutral and silly. So I always have my this is becoming kind of like my meter of like, is it cool or is it shitty? There's always possibilities of both and neutral and in between. Okay. So what else about the month of October in general? So the Mercury report. Let's talk about Mercury for a second. Um, they're gonna go into Scorpio. They're gonna get past this square with Pluto. And then, I mean, for the rest of the month of October, we get to enjoy a Mercury who I realize that they're in water and that's not their favorite element to be in as more of a earth air type fellow. They're in a feelings place when they like to think and speak about things, but they are visible, they're direct, they're far away from the sun, and they've got a good helper here in Mars who can help to resource things for Mercury, help Mercury out. So this month, especially after October 7th or so, good for buying and selling in general, communicating, albeit it's going to be martial, so like it could be more sharp this month. So if you feel like your words are landing in a bit more of a harsh or sharp way, you might have to pull back on that a little bit and soften it up. But other than that, I mean, they're functioning very well. So speaking, planning, writing, communicating, orating, buying, selling, all of that, Mercury is pretty well able to do this month. I like it better this month than next month. So I'm going to be getting my Christmas shopping done early again this year, partly because it's awesome and it feels good. And the other reason is because November looks a little funky for buying and selling. Yep, final thoughts. Just could be a little sharp. But when you get Mercury and Mars together, you get this really great combination that is good at investigating, being a scientist, getting to the bottom of stuff in a really intellectual way, being, yeah, just that kind of lawyer, scientist archetype of a smarty pants person, if that makes sense. So, for my purposes, I dig it. It can be very strategic, very able to do a bunch of tasks in the right order and have success. So, be extra careful with your words from October 14th to the 21st. That's going to be when that Mercury Mars stuff is the strongest. Your words might be the most potent. It might your actions or your planning might be really potent. But when it comes to actual conversations, especially if it's about anything that's like tender or sensitive, just be extra careful, tender with yourself and others with words when it comes to the 14th through the 21st of October. And then at the very end of the month, Mercury goes out of bounds, which is another thing I forget to talk about all the time, but it's very important. What that means when a planet goes out of bounds, it's I had mentioned before about during like the eclipse points, the lunar nodes, that's where the moon is going above or below the path of the sun. So either the sun is going along and the moon is like, traveling near it or about at the same height in the sky or below it. Other planets can do that too. And Mercury is going to be doing that more at the end of the month, which is where, and then they're going to go into Sagittarius. And then our words are going to maybe get away from us even a little more. And buying and selling may also get away from us a little bit more. So, yeah, I think October is the month. The time is nigh for the planning and all of that, especially after the 4th of October. That's really when the time is nigh for planning, speaking, communicating, all of thinking, being a smarty pants. I think that's what I have to say about Mercury. And then Venus. So the Venus report here is that, I mean, right now they are coming upon the lunar south node, Ketu here, this cup looking thing. And this is a tough time for most planets in terms of trying to achieve material things, trying to put your eyeliner on good and make your home feel nice. You know, that's what Venus is really good at. They're good at uh, taste, touch, smell, sight. They're good at making things look good, smell good, feel good. They're good at relationship and connection. Venus is so good at doing that too in a detail-oriented sign like Virgo. You get people like Martha Stewart who are very good at making something pretty. But the big but here is that the South Node is kind of a material world energy drain. It's great for spiritual stuff. So we'll talk about the more constructive things that could be going on here. But when it comes to, say, baking your favorite muffins and having them turn out great, it is not, we do not have the wind at our back. We do not have ease in muffin making from like October 1st to, let's just say, at least the 6th. So like the first week of October, Venus already in Virgo. There's some things that are difficult for Venus in Virgo, but they're going to have an extra layer of difficulty here the first week of October in terms of, I know I said like, I'm gonna be doing my Christmas shopping. I think I'm gonna wait till after the 6th to start doing my gift giving because Venus is in charge of gift giving. So I want them to be in somewhat good shape. Um, so like sometime after the 6th and before November. So like those 3 weeks look really nice. But yeah, maybe there's just lower energy for Venus stuff in the first week of October. Lower energy for pleasure, delights, making things look good, smell good, feel good, getting myself dolled up. There might be less energy for that, or less energy for communication, all the relationshiping and yeah, relating that one might need to do during a day. If that's feeling a little low energy first week of October, don't fret. Should pick up a bit, be a little better the following weeks. And then on the 13th, we're going to have Venus in good shape until November 6th-ish, I believe. So we'll have about a month of Venus being in some of the best shape that they have been in since June. Yeah, June of 2025. So, uh, beauty, love, romance, pleasure, relating, that looks really good at the second half of October. Great for all of our parties at the end of the month. I appreciate it. Great for building an aesthetic, for doing a costume, for making yourself look good. All of that is on point the second half of the month. And then finally, there's a nice little sextile between Venus and Jupiter. Actually, that's before this. So I guess let me just state it more broadly. Venus is going to have some nice connections with Jupiter this month, and I will point them out shortly. So there's a lot of nice things happening with Venus, and it really does sweeten up Venus's time in Libra, that not only are they in their own sign, they're able to, with more agency, move toward, like, say, what you want based on your preferences, or more agency to move toward your values. Venus is so much more able to do that in Libra, but then with Jupiter sending some love beams down to Venus, that really helps to stabilize their position even more and yeah, really just help out everything relational or beauty oriented. Art, including art creativity. I forgot that. So also very great for the arts this month, especially the second half of the month. So that I'm just looking forward to so much. I'll talk about it a little bit more when we get there, but I just wanted to name that generally that first half of the month, Venus struggles a little bit. Second half of the month, they're doing a little bit better. So likewise, all of their themes should also improve as the month progresses. And someone has an interview on the 6th. What does it look like? Well, what I like to see is Venus not right on top of Ketu. I'm guessing what your Mercury Pluto square will be is the tension of a job interview. Wanting to say the right thing and control what you say and all of that and have it, come out the right way. I think that's usually a big concern for most job interviews when you're doing them. So this is a instance where it's not a bad thing. It's a constructive thing, but it doesn't look super comfortable. But the good news is that as long as you don't think too hard about it, I mean, Mars is here. You've got the smarty pants configuration going. But actually, I have this at 8 p.m., so let me make sure because they're probably. Oh, okay. So I don't know what time zone you're in on the 6th, but Mercury is in Libra until. Oh gosh. You know what time it is? But yeah, it could be at the end of Libra. So either way, it's going to be kind of tense. There's going to be more self-censorship if Mercury's in Libra. In Libra, we are not going to say the edgy thing. We're going to say the safe thing. In Scorpio, you might have to like hold yourself back from saying something too edgy or something. So there could be benefits or advantages to both. Um, Mercury in Libra is very diplomatic and charming. Mercury in Scorpio is going to be way more strategic. So both of those things are helpful. You'll have to see what time of the day it is. But yeah, that's interesting. So different flavors for different parts of that day. Good luck. I hope it goes very well for you. I think with that, I think I'm ready to get into the day by day here. Let's go back to the 1st of October. It is only 45 minutes in. Uh, oh, and I wanted to do a nice mindful moment too, but oh, I don't know. It doesn't feel right, the right moment, but take care of your mental health. This is your, I don't know if anyone watches The Price is Right. I love it. I hate old Prices Right. Bob Barker was kind of a jerk, which like I didn't realize at the time, and I don't care that I'm talking shit about him right now. If you watch the old episodes, it's almost hard for me to watch. And the comparison is that now we have Drew Carey hosting The Price is Right. And he is like the kindest, most just generous spirit. And at the end of every episode, he says, "Take care of your mental health." And he tells us that he loves us. And I say, "I love you too, Drew," to the TV. And so that's my message. I'm doing the Drew Carey. Okay, I'm not doing my mindful moment, but take care of your mental health, y'all. Remember that all astrology aside, we all probably kind of know, for the most part, the next most skillful thing to do, whether that is taking a shower or having a snack or filling out that form that you've been avoiding. So that's always my go-to. And that's probably because I have a strong Mars, because they like action. It's action time. Mars is in Scorpio. We're getting on our bullshit. I'm getting back on my bullshit before Mars gets out of Scorpio. That's my one goal for the month ahead for myself. I got to get back to the gym regularly. Part of my eclipse stuff was that I finally saw a proper physical therapist for my broke ass, like hip pelvis whole situation I have. So I need to get back on that horse and get a ride in. That's my Mars and Scorpio goal. But okay, what's going on the 1st? So we've got that Venus stuff going on. That was really the biggest flavor for me. It was the Venus in Virgo with Ketu, kind of that low energy, maybe with peopling, with love, beauty, aesthetic. So, just take a rest for a week. And then Libra house topics as well might be quieter. So this is for the more advanced folks. If you know what house topics have to do with Libra for you, when Venus is with that south node, Libra stuff will also decrease and diminish. So there might be less of Libra stuff while Venus is with the south node. Don't panic. It'll probably get louder again or come back or return second week of October. There is a lunar malefic enclosure on the 1st. I think this is the only malefic enclosure of the moon for the month. All the other more notable ones were more favorable, but excuse me. This is going to be either just a time where you're doing more difficult things, like, maybe it's when I'm going to be going back to the gym for the first time. I don't know. I haven't elected it yet. Or it could be just like an unpleasant set of hours. But it's 16 hours from about 10:30 a.m. Central Time on the 1st of October, all through the day on the 1st until the 2nd at about 3 a.m. Central Time. So effectively, all day on the 1st. Take care of yourself extra and be patient as much as you can. And then for the rest of the globe, so then that's going to be like for the universal time zones into the global Eastern time zones. This lunar malefic enclosure is going to span much more into October 2nd. So then by the time we get to October 3rd, then all of us are done with the lunar malefic enclosure. And then we're going to have a Mercury-Jupiter square. So anytime I get Mercury and Jupiter together, this is on the 1st and 2nd of October, even if it's a square, which sometimes the square does say that there needs to be some adjustments or pivots, but again, like it's a good time of planning. It's a good time, I know in general it's not my favorite weather for Mercury out of the month, but it is a nice little injection of support, faith, optimism in whatever is being thought about or planned or spoken about. It's a time to speak with goodwill. It's a time to, yeah, just any kind of sharing or information sharing that is for reconciliation or figuring out how to heal or, yeah, making friends with people. It's just kind of a nice note on what is otherwise not the nicest day. So kind of a mixed bag. There's some difficult energies, but there's also some cool stuff going on. And then on the 4th again, around the 4th, we're going to see Mercury get 15 degrees away from the sun. We need that much space between them. And then if I can animate this, then right after sunset, after the sun is below the horizon, then we'll be able to see Mercury and Mars in the western sky. So that's going to be happening around the 4th. And what that means when Mercury becomes visible again, because for the last few weeks, Mercury has been too close to the sun. We haven't been able to see them after sunset or before sunrise. That planet then, so Mercury, communication is going to be quieter. Communication is going to be more difficult. Buying and selling, trading, information gathering, more difficult, quieter. After they get out of the beams and they make their appearance, then we have increasingly, and I see it a lot where it's not the day of phasis. It's not the day that Mercury becomes visible. Not all the time. I'm sure there are times when it is, but more often than not, it's more like there's just an increase in probability that the information is going to get through. You're going to get the message after Mercury becomes visible. And I think almost like the further and further it gets away from the sun after that 15 degrees, it just becomes more and more effective, more and more loud. Um, that 15-degree thing is such a convention. If we look at the sky, obviously the rays of the sun, they have this gradient that comes out that doesn't just drop off at 15. So I think as Mercury gets further and further away from the sun, if you've been waiting for news, if you've been waiting for information, as October progresses, much more likely to get that news, get that information, have those conversations that you've been waiting to have. Again, much more likely as October progresses, less likely now in September. And then the next interesting thing is going to be Mercury running into Pluto. So they're going to make their appearance on the 4th-ish, and then on the 6th, Mercury enters Scorpio and squares Pluto. And even before this, so around the 4th, 5th, or 6th, as Mercury is approaching this, Mercury square Pluto can be a time of intense conversations you really want to go well. I find, it's not so much anymore, but when I was first starting to date my partner, it was like every time I was meeting his in-laws or my, kind of in-laws or whatever, every time I was meeting his parents, it was always Venus or Mercury square Pluto. And it wasn't that anything bad was happening, but I was nervous and I wanted the conversations to go very well. And that was what was intense. So again, like someone has an interview, that's a great example of what this kind of energy can be. Uh, those are more external examples. More internally going on inside of ourselves, this can be, kind of a self internal exploration time, a not an uncomfortable or, yeah, just like a not comfortable internal exploration potentially, if you want to. It can be doing inner work, but it's not the easiest time to do that. Usually, if I can choose, I'm going to choose when a planet is like sextile or trine, like in a happier geometry with Pluto. Here, it's more like, oh, stuff's just coming up and you have to deal with it and it's uncomfortable. Or, yeah, it's just not the easiest time to wrangle and work through internal stuff when there's a square. Or if you are you're going through some kind of effort. There's some kind of effort happening for maybe more like impactful information, powerful understandings, powerful words, powerful speech happening. So, intensity is one thing. It can also just be like very potent things going on. And with Mercury's involvement, they do have to do with information, not necessarily understanding. That's more the realm of Jupiter, but getting some very important information potentially in October, or sharing very important information. That could be the case. That starts to loosen up when? Tell me when. So that's done. That perfects October 7th at 9:40 in the morning Central Time, which is going to be afternoon Universal Time on the 7th, and then more in the evening in the global Eastern time zones. So yeah, pretty much all October 7th is going to be some amount of this Mercury-Pluto square, and then after that, so more October 8th and onward, that's then that more intense conversational energy is past and is done. So then we get, there's a lunar benefic enclosure that I sped right over as I was talking about Mercury's ingress. Let me back it up here. This is actually on the 4th. I'm sorry, it's on the 5th. And it's going to be when the moon is in Pisces. And they're going to be between 19 and 23 degrees, getting some rays from Venus and then getting some rays from Jupiter right before they run into Saturn here. But there's going to be some nice hours on the 5th. And that's going to be from about 6:30 in the morning Central Time for 5 hours until around noon. And so that's more, if you're in Africa or Europe, that's going to be more around your afternoon. Looks nice on the 5th. So October 5th afternoon looks more calm, stable, whatever your relative situation is. This can be a little moment of respite or a little moment of peace if you're in a difficult situation. And so then in the global Eastern time zones, the nice patch of weather should be October 5th in the evening. Looks nice. And then, okay, so again, Mercury is queuing up to square Pluto. We talked about that. As that's going on, we have a Aries full moon. And that's happening on the 6th of October. We have, for the most part, if I'm just doing like some rough sign-based aspect stuff, by major aspect, this lunation is not beheld by either of the extreme planets that can make it feel a bit more extreme or uncomfortable. And it is beheld by one of the more stabilizing planets. So the sun and the moon are held in some amount of stability here. It feels like a decent full moon. Go ahead, make your moon water. I am clearing everyone to make their moon water for this one. I told people last month, no, don't do it. It looks volatile. Unless that's what you're going for. Sometimes you do have to burn it down. And then, yes, make the burn it down moon water and flip the table. But this looks more, a little bit more under control. And what makes it feel even more under control is that this moon is ruled by a Scorpio Mars. So the moon here in Aries is ruled by this Mars in Scorpio. And I know that there's no major aspect, but there is a loophole, a minor sympathy that I won't get into. It's almost like they have a tin can telephone where the moon can talk to Mars and get support. And what this feels like to me, so at the very basic for the 6th of October for this full moon, the themes that might be going on, it could be just that very classic Aries Libra my raw expression versus how it's received, my individuation versus the group or belonging, or balance and imbalance. So, at the very least, if you don't know anything about your chart, that's totally okay. Some themes that you might notice around the 6th of October might be around the self and other and how you're interfacing with the self and other and how you're expressing yourself. A full moon is usually around peaks, culminations, we're realizing things, or something that maybe we've been maybe working toward for the last 2 weeks is coming to its completion or its sharing point. Or if we've been kind of thinking about something or a topic's been coming up in our heart or our mind for a couple weeks, sometimes during the full moon we have a realization. We're like, oh yeah, I see it. I see it clearly now. And then we spend the rest of the 2 weeks integrating what we figured out. So for me, I think this might be finishing all of my data review for my research. I've been trying to do this research project for a few years now, and it's actually happening. Like I'm hoping to have it done by the end of the year. Like fingers crossed. But I have only a little bit more data to review, and then I just have to finish my conclusions and finish writing my paper, which is already mostly done. It's like half done. And the hardest part of that paper is done. And for me, this is in my place of writing. So I think it's going to be a culmination around my writing. I think that's what it might be for me. And it is very self-expressy, and I am trying to figure out how people are going to receive it. So it's pretty right on. But then, too, if you do know your rising sign, of course, look at the house topics, for this theoretical Cancer rising. This would be some culmination or realization about their career or their life path. Or maybe something is being highlighted about their career or their life path during this full moon. The aspect after this full moon, I believe, is Jupiter. It is. So there's a good aftertaste after this full moon. Yeah, moon water appropriate. I realized the sun is in a place that is the Three of Swords. So, like, I mean, read the room. Like, if you're going through a heartbreak right now, this could be about that. You know, maybe then be careful around the astrological magic. But I'd love to think about how Austin Coppock has talked about this middle part of Libra, about commitment. He talks about like a chain link binding things together. So I think a lot of times with Libra, especially the middle 10 degrees, it is about commitments, social structures, the social rules of engagement to a thing. And so if there's, any kind of culminations or fruitings around what you're expressing, and maybe within some kind of committed structure, that could be one way that this full moon is playing out. But yeah, again, overall, looks like a pretty, I guess, nice full moon. I don't see a ton of threats. It doesn't feel messy or like a problem or anything. And then, oh, one other thought. Uh, what are we seeing that might be out of balance? Because if we think about Libra being balance, then Aries might be what is out of balance or being done in an imbalanced way. Now, Jason Holley makes a beautiful point in his talk about Aries that imbalance is not bad. And a lot of stories begin because there's some kind of thing that needs to be reordered or readjusted or rebalanced. And, thinking about dancing as well, like in my own life, there's plenty of positions and movements that can only happen because of intentional imbalance for a moment. So I don't want us to demonize the word imbalance. However, this might be a full moon the first week of October, especially in the Aries Libra parts of your chart, to consider what are the balances going on? Are things fair, reciprocal? Are people's needs being met without other people being trampled over or something? Like how do we all have room for all of us? I think that's always a crux of finding balance between Libra and Aries. But this full moon might really show us things that are out of balance for some reason. And I think that does it. Yeah. I wrote something here about actions and consequences, and I was thinking about like the Three of Wands and Aries just being a very action-oriented place. It takes, thinks about something and then it wants to do it. It doesn't just think about it and feel it. And, Saturn having their exaltation in Libra, Sun having their exaltation in Aries, and the way that like T. Susan Chang talks about the kind of entrepreneurial spirit of Aries. It feels very action consequence, but I don't know. Skeptical me is like, well, everything is action and consequence all the time. So I'm not going to get too much. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but uh, that could be another way you could look at it, is just very frankly in these areas of life, for this theoretical Cancer rising, actions that they're taking in their career and the consequences that it might have for their home or private life. So good luck with that full moon. I think it's going to be just fine. And right after it, like very shortly after it, we get the exact Mercury Pluto square. So again, like I don't know, I might sound a little Pollyanna. There could be some more potent things being realized, some uncomfortable things being realized with this full moon, but overall, again, just seeing Venus and Jupiter so able to support like certain aspects of the sky, certain aspects of the lunation, I'm just much less worried in general. Final answer. Let's move on to the 8th. So yeah, the 6th looks interesting. What day was that? That's a Monday. That's already my day off. If this wasn't my day off, I might take it off. And then we have the 8th, which is gonna be our Venus Jupiter sextile. So this is, I mean, in general, we're putting together relationship and goodwill. So it's like relationship stuff, whatever difficulties are going on, this chart has an ability to relate to people. It has an ability to connect and communicate with our best diplomatic foot forward, I think. As long as we don't get too stuck on certain details or like, the way that if certain challenges have happened in relationship, we like to go back to certain stories sometimes and just replay these narratives about who did what and when, or who didn't do what or when. And when Jupiter and Venus are together like this, I feel like it really gives us the ability to get above that kind of narrative stuff and come back to just, okay, is there goodwill here? Are there needs to be met? What are those needs? Can we work through them strategically? So if there is anything else funky going on in the sky, I really like that the Jupiter Venus sextile is here to help stabilize things in general. And then as soon as Venus is done talking to Jupiter, unfortunately, they do go into a bit of a challenge mode here. And they are going to have to do, this is the last of the faster moving planets that is having to do this opposition with Saturn and Neptune. So if you are trying to ask someone on a date, I would not do it like the 8th through, let's just say the 14th. Let's give it to the 14th. So the 8th through the 14th, not great weather to request anything romantic. We're going to have Venus, a planet of relationships, running into a planet of rejection and a planet of confusion. So there's two things there that I don't like for these purposes. So again, like October 8th through the 13th, 14th, there's going to be a higher probability of rejection, potentially a higher probability of confusion, or something like that. Now, if you are, say, presenting something at work and you're expecting feedback, that's fine. Like if you're trying to, I don't know, propose something that's not romantic, but creative. And there's a little bit more wiggle room for what Saturn is doing. Like, oh yeah, this is meant to have some feedback. This is fine. Then it might not be that bad. But specifically for romantic purposes, I'm not loving the 8th through the 14th. But after that, it gets much better. So hang in there if you're in the dating world. Uh, there's another warning for you at the end of the month, but the last 2 weeks of October are pretty great in general for dating. We just have to get past this opposition with Saturn. And that actually, okay, because there's two here. There's Saturn, then there's Neptune. So the Saturn opposition gets done at 6:10 in the morning, uh, Central Time on the 11th. It gets done. So like the most chance of rejection is done by the morning of the 11th. If you are in Universal Time, that's 11 a.m. After that, you're safe. Or for global Eastern time zones, this is more in your evening. So let's just say like everybody's going to be more safe from rejection on the 12th, but not necessarily the 11th. But then the thing about that is that even after the 11th, Venus still has to do this opposition with Neptune, and Neptune is about sometimes confusion and lack of certainty, lack of clarity. So, that would make, again, that would make a lot of sense if you're intentionally moving into something where it's like, yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. I'm going to get some feedback. It's probably going to be a delay in the process, but a necessary one. Again, that can be fine. And that can actually be really constructive. But for things that we'd want a lot of clarity, so like too, if I was doing anything like, oh, if this was a day in pharmacy, I think I wouldn't want to work. Because yeah, anything, where you do want to not make a mistake, well, Neptune is not going to help you with that because they often miss stuff in the material world. And that actually reminds me, because the cool thing about Neptune is spirituality. And I did forget to talk about that with Venus and the South Node. So actually, let's back up. Before Venus has to deal with this whole thing around the 8th through the 11th, 12th, 13th, they are going to be in more of a spiritual mindset, maybe. So there might not be as much of a pull to like get your material world indulgences met, to eat the yummy things or to have the yummy dates. The focus might be more relationally in the first part of October, more spiritual. Like, what is the spiritual cleaning out of my like romantic doings? Or what ways of relating can I let go of? What means of relationship are not working anymore? What details about relating do I need to let go of? So it could be a lot of this internal work around relationship that's going on. That could be the spiritual part of this. It could be connecting or having, connecting with others through spiritual means. So maybe this is a great day in like the yoga studio, just not a great day on Tinder. So that's more of the vibe of in terms of pleasure and relationship, much more of a, I don't know, conservative, chill, spiritual tone earlier in the month. Then Venus will move through this Saturn Neptune opposition. And then we get to enjoy cool Venus and Libra time. So that's on the 13th. So that's when Venus enters Libra. And again, they're getting away from Neptune. So still it's a little muddy of an entrance. It's a little slippery of an entrance here. But overall, now at this point from October 13th, and let me just double check it until November 6th. So October 13th to November 6th, themes of relationship, any kind of peopling, that should go better. There's more diplomacy here. People are more charming. You may be more charming in whatever areas of life this is for you, whatever house topics Venus and Libra are in. Also, beauty, art, anything where you have to compose a thing, like a photograph and do like the thirds. It's very Libra, where you need to find like where's the empty space or where's the silence in the speech or where's the pause in the dance. Venus in Libra is so good at figuring out all of that. And so from the 13th to the 6th, a great time for artists, dancers, musicians, anyone who is working with a medium out there. That's going to be fun. And then when it comes to, and this is a big caveat because when I talk about Venus being in good condition, a lot of what I'm revolving that around are material world feel good stuff. Um, the big caveat here with what humans might feel as a favorable experience versus what Libra does, what Venus in Libra does. Sometimes it's about ethics and values in here. Libra can be about the very intellectual realm of relating. And so, very quickly, we can get into themes about justice or injustice. And if there is a challenge to those values, if there is a challenge to justice, a strong Venus in Libra will go into warrior goddess mode. And we got a love goddess here. We've also got a warrior goddess. Now, from the Mesopotamian traditions, a lot of gods were war gods on top of whatever else they did. But, Venus was also in charge of if there was an injustice or something that they thought was out of order, even though sometimes they had gotten themselves into trouble by their own shenanigans. They were going to fight to replace order. They were going to fight to restore justice. And so I often find that people with a Venus in Libra in their birth chart, it's not all just like bonbons on the beach and having charming dinners and being really well dressed. It can also be that person fighting for certain fairness in their life or having to really stand up for some kind of value at some point. And that's not always comfortable. It's really like meaningful and satisfying and important, but it can involve conflict, which is interesting, which is not, I mean, usually I think of the opposite with Libra. It's about harmony. But when there's fake harmony, the kind that comes from censorship and control of that nature, that sometimes there needs to be a bit of kerfuffles or conflict to happen to restore real harmony that can only be cultivated over time. So there's a lot of heady intellectual kind of, I'm being like an armchair anthropologist talking about Venus and Libra, but that's a whole dimension that it's like that's what Venus is doing when they're working very well, and it doesn't always feel good. So it depends on the context of your life. It depends on what's going on. But overall, if I just kind of table all of that nuance for a moment and pretend like it's not there, overall, like Venus and the topics they're in charge of and the house topics that they're going to be in charge of, uh, those things should go really well for the month of October into November. So then for this theoretical Aquarius rising, once Venus is in Libra, their publishing should go better. Their long distance travel or getting a passport or a visa should go better. Their home or living situation stuff should go better, or things with their parents should go more stably. So overall, I dig it. Looking forward to it. Been looking forward to it. And I hope you are too. So now that we are halfway through the month, oh, shoot. And actually, one other thing, they're going to be locking in with this whole outer planet thing. So, um, this is very interesting, and I don't know what this will be. I'm not going to actually riff on that at all. But I will tell you what I did notice. Um, let's see. When the sun plugged into this, so Mercury was here about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Sun also went through this pass. My writing, and now Mercury is a planet that's about writing. My writing was like off the hook. It was happening, a lot of it. Like usually I'm not just writing all the time. Like I'll write something maybe once a day, maybe every other day I'll write something. I never share what I'm writing, but this is why I call myself a writer in my bio. I'm constantly writing, but it was like dialed up to 10 when these planets were at the beginning of Libra. I was scribbling the fastest I have scribbled in a while. So it just feels so supercharged. It feels like Miracle Grow or like, yeah, someone's like really pushing on the gas. So then I assume when Venus gets here as well, there's going to be something supercharged about, maybe we'll just be super socializing, doing a ton of relating. Maybe we're doing a ton of art. Maybe we're going to feel super, see, I am riffing on it now. Maybe we will feel very like artistically inspired or motivated. So if you like mid-month are feeling like, yeah, let's do the art thing or let's do that fun party or anything social. Or if you're organizing out there or if you're doing activist activities, I wonder too, if Venus is doing the warrior goddess mode, maybe that will also get supercharged. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's been a real interesting thing when planets are getting into a new sign. They're getting to that 0, 1 degree area and plugging into all that outer planet stuff. I have been able to tell. It has been noticeable to me. Okay, let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Okay, so someone was asking the moon in its fall, but supported by Mars in Scorpio. So yeah, this is something that has been kind of interesting, is now that we have Mars in Scorpio, when the moon is in Scorpio, which usually is a challenge for the moon, now they're actually getting a lot of support in there, and it might not be the support that moon would choose. This is where like, you know, they're not given the food that they would like. They're not, but they are given something. So, I mean, I'm N of one. I'm one person. And I have Mars. Like, they're not my malefic of the sect. Like, they are not my friend mostly. And Moon has felt a little better. It seemed a little better in Scorpio. But then also, we're getting this nice trine from Jupiter now, too. And that's only been the case since June, that now when the moon is in Scorpio, they're also getting this super supportive trine from Jupiter. So we've got two things this month that are giving the moon in Scorpio a bit more support than they usually have in there. So it might feel a little better than normal. Yeah, it's funny. I have my lot of fortune in Aries and my Jupiter, who's my moon ruler, they're in Aries. I've got like Aries stuff. And yeah, I've been reflecting a lot at how I am very out of balance as a person and how much it bothers me because I also have Venus stuff. Uh, so hearing Jason Holley talk about how imbalance it's not always bad. We have really characterized it as bad, but it's certainly not always bad. Oh, hello, Neha. It's nice to see you off of like, uh, I hope I'm saying your name right. Neha Jha. They are also an astrologer from the internet, I believe, if I'm recognizing your last name correctly. I recognize your first name. I think you're the one from the internet that I know. Hello. Everyone go check their stuff out. Are there any other astrologers here? There's got to be at least one. There's usually a few. Show yourselves. Raise your hands. Ashara says they started learning Mandarin around the eclipses and have been having a bunch of fun with that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I bought this whole for the eclipses again. I saw a physical therapist and I also had to buy a thing because it's in my second house. I bought this tool so I can like dig into a muscle in the way that I need to. It's just been so second housey. Oh, Jason, you're an astrologer. Did I know that? I can't remember if I knew that. Amazing. Cool. Yeah, and like you don't have to like see clients to be a professional astrologer. That's just one job we do. Sometimes they're doing other jobs like teaching or researching or writing, or there's a few jobs. Okay, think that's all for comments. Thank you, everyone, and let me know if you have any questions or if I skip over anything you want me to look at. And don't forget to hit the like button. And Pluto's going to station. So they have been, what was it? So they stationed retrograde at 3 degrees 49. So let me actually show you that. So in May, this is when Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius, they stationed retrograde. And then what that means is that if you have planets essentially in the first couple degrees of Aquarius, planets or points in the first couple degrees of any of the fixed signs, so Scorpio, Leo, Taurus, that means that Pluto, really since May, has been moving back over planets for a second time, planets or points for a second time. And again, that's if you have stuff in the first 2, 3 degrees of these fixed signs. And now today, where are they? They're at 1 degree and they're going to station on the 13th at 1 degree 22 minutes. And now they're going to start moving forward again. So now if you have any points between 1 degree of fixed signs and about 5 degrees, that's going to be the next place that Pluto is going to go to. So about for the next year, Pluto is going to be moving over about 4 or 5 degrees of the zodiac. So if you've got planets or points in early Aquarius, Scorpio, Taurus, or Leo, you can expect more of those themes of transformation, control, power dynamics. I've gotten into the weeds with that. I'm not going to today, but any of those, let's just say difficulties. Pluto generally doesn't bring flowers. They're maybe after a bunch of poo, then there is a flower. But there's first usually something that's difficult or being let go of first. And that's what they're going to be up to. So something potentially transformative or big shifts or change, but potentially also something challenging if you've got stuff in the very early degrees of fixed signs. So that is a notable thing. And then there's a couple other aspects I'm not going to get into about this time, mid-October. We are at the point where Mercury and Mars are really close. So the 13th is happening. We've got Venus in good shape. We're diplomatic, we're charming, and yet there is a spicy tongue somewhere. So it's a very interesting combo when we've got so much stability and diplomacy, but then we got Mercury and Mars together. And yeah, they're very powerful and potent, sometimes difficult to control. So be on your best behavior for better or for worse, or if you are going to be up to shenanigans, actually it seems like kind of a good time for them. Like, it's not, I was actually reading up on battles. Not that I'm advising anyone to do any battles. I'm not giving any advice for anything. No legal, medical, or health advice being given. Uh, what was, there's 3 of them. I'm not giving any of them. But I was reading about good times to make war from an electional perspective. And surprisingly, it was actually, I thought it would be when Mars would be applying to Jupiter, and it's not. It's actually when Mars is separating from Jupiter, because the separating planet is like the person that you want to be in good shape. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it, but it looks like a good month for the right kind of trouble, if you know what I mean. Some civil good trouble. That's what it's called. The good type of trouble. And why am I saying this? I'm saying this because Mars is in good shape and also because Saturn isn't holding them back. So, okay, cool. I say what I said. You can take it for what you need to. Um, oh yeah, last thing. Okay, Mercury Mars in a water sign. Um, I know I've just said, yeah, be careful about your words, they can be sharp or like the messages can just be really potent. And when you're giving someone a really like distilled potent message and you actually want it to be received, it's a lot like trying to give someone medicine. You don't want to just like throw it up and then not be able to receive it. So what I like to talk about is like the charge that comes with words or even writing. Like, I think people don't realize how much their own like internal vibe leaks out onto the internet. And like, maybe I'm projecting because I've noticed this with myself. I think we're all quite capable of putting stuff out there that is not great, but our words have an energy, our words have a charge, and especially in a water sign. There is like this nonverbal magical charge in there that we have to be aware of. And I think sometimes there's a lot of contempt in our words, energy of contempt, and we kind of sweep it away as self-righteousness kind of says, "Oh, well, I'm right though. So, who cares if I have contempt?" But like, watch the contempt this month. That's what I would say. Even like, especially before the 13th, when we've got Venus in Virgo. Venus in Virgo is a recipe for disgust. Like seeing all the details, and then Venus is like the Lord of clean, the Lord of cleanliness. And they're just like, that doesn't fit. That's not it. So there can be a lot of disgust and then paired with contempt. Yeah, that's a combo that it's going to have a lot of people throwing things back up and not really able to receive them if that's the energy that's in everything out there. So, and not to say that we don't need strong, loud, potent words sometimes, and just to say things how they are. But it's a delicate dance, and I think one that we have to be a little extra careful with this month. I love this month, but we gotta be a little careful. One of my favorite stories about this kind of thing, and this falls under the umbrella of right speech, and now I'm totally going into Buddha mode, so I apologize. You can sign off if you're not into listening to me talk about this kind of stuff. But one of my favorite stories to describe how to discern when it's like how harsh is it okay to be, Like there's fierce love, there's potent love, and you can't always be kind and gentle about or you can't always be gentle about everything. Kindness isn't always gentle. And this is a good story of when. And so here's the story. Okay, so there's a child who is playing and they put a rock in their mouth. And an adult rushes over, grabs the child, and scoops the rock out of their mouth. And the child is crying and they're not pleased and they're obviously feeling like very like hurt by this whole exchange. But wasn't that like the loving thing to do? Of course it was the loving thing to do. So when it comes to harsh or potent or intense words or conversations that need to be said, and like, yeah, sometimes people aren't going to like it, what you're doing, but sometimes it is necessary to say, hey, take that rock out of your mouth. Hey, you can't do that. You can't say that. That's dangerous. That's harmful. Um, and then there was this other thing where this is a different sutta, and I don't remember which one it was, but there was a point at which um, the Buddha was talking about like how when you say things skillfully and in a timely manner and it's true and it's helpful for you to say it and you've got the right time to say it, some people are not going to be happy to hear it and other people will be. and some people won't care. But he even acknowledged that some people are not going to be happy with what you say, even if it's timely and loving and kind, and maybe it's not gentle, but it is necessary. And so if I'm ever talking about holding your words or being careful with your words or anything like that, I have a lot of complexity and nuance under that I don't usually bring up, but now I just did. So now you all know. So yeah, it's really complicated and it's a case by case basis. So at least I think it is. I digress, but it was a good digression because that Mercury Mars stuff is loud in the month ahead. Uh, yeah, like think about how like Mr. Rogers talked. Think about how he would talk when he was angry. Like how would Mr. Rogers sound when they're angry? They can still say some stuff, but they're not gonna like be furthering cycles of violence through their words. Um, and again, this all depends to like whatever you choose to do with your words. It depends on your environment, the people around you, your safety level, the level of privilege that you have that determines that safety level. So I'm speaking from my place of my types of privileges. This may not apply to someone who doesn't have the same level of safety that I have. So anyway, good digression. And then we actually get beyond that. So got Venus, everyone's where they need to be. And let's talk a bit about Chiron. If that wasn't fun enough, let's add in Chiron. Um, we've got these two, and then about the same time, we've got the Sun. And this is part of why I'm harping on it. This is part of why I'm warning us, is because there's also some Chiron-y stuff happening over here. And this might tie in with that full moon. We have that full moon in Aries about self-expression versus what is going to be palatable to hear, or just the self interfacing with the other. And there could be something really healing but potentially ouchy during this time. So I do think it's a potent time of healing this month, but in the same way that a scab is itchy when it is healing, it's not a comfortable healing, but it could be. So it feels like really potent words or conversations that have an impact that could be helpful or hurtful. So we can kind of hopefully choose which way we go with that. We can't always. And in this T square, we've got Jupiter as this releasing point, if I'm speaking in more modern astrology. So what is, this energy of self and other and expression and how that's received, or belonging, just themes of belonging and all of the hurt that can come when we don't feel like we belong, and all of the healing that can happen when we do feel like we belong. Um, I think there's a lot of potential for healing during this configuration. It just doesn't look super comfortable. That's all. And then this leads us to our next lunar enclosure and then the new moon. So we're going to have another nice, it's a 34-hour nice patch of weather on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of October. So from Central Time on the 19th, 1:30 p.m. through the 20th until 11:30 p.m. on the 20th. So really a better part of 2 days. If you're in Universal Time, this nice patch of weather or more stable patch of weather is going to be from about, what is that, 6:30 p.m. on the 19th until about 4:30 in the morning on the 21st. So that'll be a nice way to lead into the new moon, which is on the 21st. And I'm back to the chat. Let me look at the chat. Oh, Kai is here. Hello, Kai. Yeah. Oh, we got some other Hellenistic fans in the house. And it is just one lens to look through. There's a lot of different astrologies. That's the one I'm usually talking about, but Jason says they think about Pluto as a quasi-malefic or malefic leaning. Yeah, yeah. I kind of feel like that about all the outers. Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, they all do like magical, like cool stuff sometimes, but um, lots of shenanigans. And also, they're all these different agents of change. Like they all change stuff. Neptune changes stuff by dissolving it. Uranus is Uranus. They're just interrupting everything all the time. Surprises. Pluto is transforming and creation and destruction. And all of those things are change or require us to let go. You know, if it's Uranus interrupting us, I have to let go of a plan. And we have things like Buddhism because change is so upsetting. So if change is upsetting such that we have entire spiritual systems to help us cope with change, and then we got these three planets that are change, I'm like, oh yeah, they're definitely quasi-malefic. They're definitely doing stuff that feels uncomfortable. Yes, we are in agreement with that. Uh, okay, let's talk about this Leo or Libra new moon. So we've got it happening at the very end of the sign. So this is our kind of regrouping moment. We had a nice few days, the 19th, 20th, 21st of October. We're going to have, if you're in a difficult circumstance or things are not happy in your life, I'm hoping those few days can be a sense of respite or peace momentarily. Or if things are going well, maybe the 19th through the 21st is especially nice. And then we have a reset button for the month. We've got a regrouping moment here in Libra, and we've got two benefics that can see it, and those more intense extreme energies cannot. So this, again, looks like another one to do any like moon rituals that you have, any lunar rituals that you like to do. This looks like a very nice, good, safe moon to do them with. Now I know the moon's going to be running into Pluto eventually, and they're going to be with Sat or with Mars, but the moon itself, the lunation itself is a-okay, looks good. A little funky aftertaste on it, but if you get it done, like get all your ritual stuff done before, let me cut it off. Get it all done before 10:30 a.m. Central Time on the 21st. So do all your like new moon lunar ritual stuff Monday night or Tuesday morning. And if you are in the universal time zone or around there, then you have a little bit more time to do your rituals until the afternoon into the evening if you're more globally east in the 21st. But get earlier than later because then the moon's going to be going through some things. Now, I mean, I know it's a little out of sign, but close enough. It's going to be a bit of a maybe more potent, transformative set of beginnings or endings. Every new moon, every month, we have, I call it a reset button, but it's really a ending and a beginning. It's the closing out of one cycle for the month and the opening up of the next cycle for the next month. And here, that closing down of the last cycle and opening up of the next one looks very potent, very powerful. It's a powerful new beginning. And this is where, again, if you know your rising sign and you know the house topics of Libra, that great beginnings or endings, which I guess I usually say that for eclipses, but a potent beginning or ending here for any of those life topics. So for this theoretical Sagittarius rising, they might be having a great reset with their friend zone, or maybe something in their groups is beginning or ending. Maybe they used to do bar trivia and now they're going to do board game night. You know, it doesn't have to be something, I don't know, sensational. It can be small beginnings and endings. It can be happy things that are kind of coming to their close or opening up into their next iteration. And then again, we have Jupiter sending their love beams, stabilizing things for Venus, who's watching over this whole lunation. It just looks really nice. I like it. Finally, finally. And I know it's opposite Chiron, but it's separating by like a few degrees. So Chiron stuff's in the past. Whatever those ouchy things that you healed from the few days prior, in the rear view mirror. Um, yep, final answer. Now the few days after, so like the 22nd, no promises. I don't know if it's going to feel as nice, but the new moon itself on the 21st feels nice, or looks like it does. Hello, Dux Noctis, an old friend. You've been around since the beginning, I feel like. What else about this new moon? Oh, okay. So bringing in Decans and Austin Coppock's 36 Faces work. Um, he talks about this kind of awareness of balance and, black and white and trying to carefully weigh decisions, with those scales in Libra. And by the time we get to the end of the sign, that black and white balancing turns more gray. It's refined, and we start looking at a lot of different things that we're trying to balance. Now it's not just two things, but it's more than two things we're trying to balance, and it can actually become almost overwhelming. So he uses like a gyroscope as a way to describe this. There's several planes that are trying to be balanced. I think he also mentioned 3D chess, like from Star Trek. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of things trying to be considered and held space for, and almost to the point where it's impossible and something is going to get dropped. He talks about the drunken master, kind of this, yeah, it's these several things, but it's hard to keep them all in balance all of the time. Um, he says you end up contradicting yourself. So it's like all of that intellectual awareness of Libra, it gets a bit much. So if you're kind of, I guess, in practical terms, how I might experience this last part of Libra, I describe it as my dilemma so now I'm trying to eat less meat to eventually eat no meat. But for a while I was like, well, what about grass-fed beef? What about the grass-fed cows? And then it turns out that the grass-fed beef farts more, and then there's more methane in the atmosphere, which is not good for the greenhouse effect. So it's like I'm trying to balance this thing over here, but then this other thing is getting out of control, and it's hard to keep it all up in the air, right? So don't be so hard on yourself, during this new moon. If you're like, why aren't I keeping everything perfect? And why aren't I Martha Stewart and everything should be fine? Um, don't do that to yourself. You are but a mere human. Uh, you do not have to have it all figured out and all perfect right away all the time. That's what I would say about that part of Libra. And the next day, on the 22nd, that's when the moon is going to run into this. It's, much more raw and honest here in Mars territory. Not that Libra and Venus aren't honest, but they're going to say things in a more careful way. Mars doesn't. So now we're in a bit more, I guess, less of a tender kind of atmosphere. And at the same time, Moon is very supported. They're getting this overcoming trine. And so, I don't know, the 22nd, it's not as comfortable, but it looks fine. It looks effective. It looks constructive on the 22nd. And then we get Sun entering Scorpio. So the Scorpio party expands. We've got 3 planets who are going to be hanging out there now for more than a day. The moon's going to bebop out of there. So it's a Scorpio party, Scorpio time. Scorpio is strategic. They are not always using their powers of strategy for shenanigans. Most of the time it's for boring stuff, like the best order of operations to do my errands, for instance. It's a very strategic time. Just don't overthink it. I feel like Scorpio can paint themselves into a corner sometimes. The way that we think it has to go down just this exact way, and I have to control every part of it, and then we don't end up doing anything. So as long as you're not getting into that inaction or too tight of grip on the steering wheel, in October. That might be a sign that the Scorpio is getting too powerful. So remember Pisces, remember Hakuna Matata. Neptune is going to be going back into Pisces, the land of Hakuna Matata. Here they are. So they were just in Aries and now they're back into Pisces. Last month on September 1st, Saturn also went back into Pisces. So now we've got these two planets that have been doing this dance together for a while. They're now both back here. Wow, this is a lot of water going on by the end of the month. So feel your feelings, I guess. Do your best to communicate your needs. Take care of yourself. Oh, I'm skeptical of this. The last time we had this a couple years ago, it was a little too watery for me. I'm pretty sure I cried a lot. But maybe it will be crying this time for knowledge and understanding. I'm not going to act like this is fun. Sometimes I see water and I'm like, oh, it could be great for art or spirituality. And sometimes it is that, but sometimes it does get a little soupy. So there you go. That's getting toward the end of the month. As far as Pisces, Neptune going back in there, this is our last rodeo for whatever those house topics are. So for this theoretical Sagittarius rising, Neptune is bringing that, in one way, acceptance, forgiveness to the place of parents, but also confusion and lack of clarity. For me, this is going into my second house, into my money place. So I'm going to be having one last rodeo of Neptunian lack of clarity around my money, having to be extra clear with people about what I actually do and can offer. Um, all of these little things, but also maybe acceptance around what my needs are, acceptance around money stuff. So if you do know your rising sign, check out the house topics. That's where you're going to want to be extra Virgo, extra like double checking stuff, making sure you read the fine print, doing all of that. And that this warning to be extra careful, over communicate, double check stuff, that's going to be really from now until March of 2026. February 13th is more the exact, but I'm just kind of saying March. So, yeah, Neptune, they've re-entered Pisces. It's not going to be, I mean, it's been 14 years, what's 5 more months? But we do have 5 more months. So very much slippery when wet, slow down and ask questions. And then, yeah, the end of the month, oh, there's several things still. I'm sorry, this has gone so long. This is like the longest one I've had in ages. Do I blame Scorpio? I think I must. I think I'm actually going to take a little bit of a break. I thought I had like 2 or 3 things left to talk about, but I haven't even done the Halloween report yet. So I'm gonna be right back. Hold on one second. Obviously, like this is very casual. No one ever feel like you have to stay for the whole thing. But I'm gonna be back in like 2 minutes and we'll finish out the month. And I'm back. Thank you, everyone. Um, so let's look at the last week of the month. Now, this Mars-Jupiter trine. I have my eyes on this as something I'm kind of looking forward to. Mars is our actions, our energy, our effort, our motivation, and they're getting so much encouragement at this point. At the end of October, it's like whatever we have our eyes on as the goal, we can get there. I feel really good about getting there. Um, yeah, so I would say, maybe a really practical thing to do for October if you have the ability or the bandwidth, if there is something you need to tackle or get done, it feels like a good month to do it. Or at least feel a little hopeful that even if it's like a several step process, that you can get a really good start in whatever that process is. So Mercury, the planning person is there, the motivation effort person is there, and they're both getting cohesiveness. Jupiter says, okay, guys, zoom out. What is the whole plan? Does this make sense with the whole plan? Jupiter helps to guide the ultimate meaning. Okay, yeah, you're really like into that, but is it meaningful? That's more when Jupiter is around. They help to ground things, make things cohesive and make sense together instead of just being like disparate parts. So it feels just like a very productive energy. And then we also have Saturn in a trine. Saturn adds that structure, discipline, that ability to put some borders and edges around it in a more utilitarian, practical way. So this is feeling extremely constructive. I really, really like this last part of October. I did some electional work for this last part of October. There's some concerning things in the sky, but overall, it's one of the better, namely this. This is the thing that's concerning in the sky that's coming up. But I mean, this is some of the best skies that we're going to have astrologically for a while is this last part of October. So use it wisely as the best you can. And we have Sun squaring Pluto. So of course, the Sun enters Scorpio, and then they also are going to go through that Pluto square. So this could be, again, just channeling a lot of that disciplined effort and structured effort towards something meaningful. And then the Sun and Pluto just throwing fuel on the fire. Like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. Very powerful. This could also be forgetting to stop for snacks. So make sure you're not so hyper focused or fixated that you are getting a little off the rails in terms of taking care of yourself or losing sight of that ultimate goal. But again, like Jupiter's here. So they're going to be reminding the sun, hey, buddy, have you rested in a second? So it's very, very helpful, but really powerful energy at the end of the month. Um, Squares again can feel a little like too much, a little intense. So then to around October 23rd, 24th, doing all of your calming tranquility exercises, whatever they are, if you need to. And if there's a lot of intense, like the sun is us, the sun is our soul, our identity, our spirit. It is also, Valen said it was the perceptive apparatus of the soul, which is like, it sounds very cool. It kind of sounds like word salad. But to me, it means it's like I am perceiving the world through my soul. It's like, what am I just experiencing? And in Buddhism, we call it bare knowing. And the sun is like just experiencing directly what is going on without putting on the mercurial labels about what everything is. But long story short, if you're thinking about if your soul is perceiving something a little too intensely, if you are staring into some void around the 23rd, 24th, um, pull yourself out of it, play some music, have some fruit snacks, you know, yeah. Can get a little too tightly wound. All right, and then There's a little blip on the 25th where I don't like handing in applications. So, oh, no, not that. What was it? It was the moon doing their monthly square with Saturn and Neptune. And so, yeah, pretty much all day on the 25th, and then more on like the 26th if you're in Universal time or the global Eastern time zones. So 25th and 26th of October, caution around requests. We're running into rejection and uncertainty. Or even like the few days before, yeah, let's just say like if you even think your application might be getting looked at around like the 25th, 26th, if you can avoid that happening somehow, I don't like those days for getting things approved. So a little caution there. And then, or with sending emails or just kind of any kind of relating or common things that you need to do and would like them to be received well. Caution on the 25th and 26th. And then on the 27th, we're going to start getting into, it's not a Mercury retrograde, but I kind of treat them the same way. Mercury opposite Uranus, and that's going to be at the end of the month. This can be, at the very best, Mercury can just be trying new things, especially with other people, trying new things with others, trying different experiences with other people, um, any type of doing things differently with communication or how you play music or how you think about stuff. Uranus is going to come in and say, do it differently. Think about it differently. Have you tried this? So in some ways, it can just be at the end of October, a time for novelty, which I think a lot of us will be having fun with Halloween and, you know, having a bunch of weird experiences with people. Yup, that's usually what we do around that time. But it also is interruptions with logistics, interruptions with planning, information, communication. So October 27th through October 29th is the most intense logistical snafu territory. So like, yeah, let's just say 27th through the 30th. Be extra careful with your communication, information, um, anything logistical. Just do an extra once over on it before you hit the send button. And then there is a lunar benefic enclosure, another nice window of weather. This one is 13 hours long on the 28th. We have the moon enclosed between some rays from Venus and Jupiter. And that is going to be October 28th from 11:10 p.m. until the 29th at 1 p.m. So really kind of all night into the next day on the 29th. Universal time, that's going to be at about 4 in the morning on the 28th through to uh, about 6 p.m. So nice weather, a good time to do things. Or if your life is difficult, this can be a time of reprieve or rest or temporary stability. And again, that's universal time on the 28th between about 4 a.m. and 6 p.m. And then more global Eastern time zones that you go, this good chunk of weather is going to be more the afternoon of October 28th into the evening of October 28th. So that might be a nicer time. And our final ingress of the month, our final planet moving into another sign. So get all your Mercury stuff done before the 27th of October, ideally. And now Mercury is going to be in worse shape. They are going to be dealing with Uranus, and then they're going to be in a place where they're not well resourced in the ways that they would appreciate being resourced. Mercury would like a calculator. In Sagittarius, they are given a walking stick. They are not given the tools for the job. They're given a campfire to tell stories around, but they're not given a calculator. So, Mercury in Sagittarius is really awesome for symbolic language. It's really good for storytelling, narrative work, anything where you have to like take a bunch of information and make it make sense together. So, like research, actually, Mercury in Scorpio, but also Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury in Scorpio will get to the bottom of it and go really deep. Sagittarius is able to make it all make sense and make a story around it. So Mercury in Sagittarius is good for so many things. It is so fast. And I think part of the challenge then in the material world becomes with that speed, we miss details. People don't figure out what's going on because we forgot to tell them because we're going too fast. So I think the best advice maybe at the end of the month, slow down with communications, logistics, information. If you just slow down, that's probably going to take care of most of the challenge with it. Or being too optimistic about stuff. You know, that's another challenge with trying to be real with Mercury information in a very optimistic place. Um, yeah, I think they're plugging into maybe this will be a really cool time for learning and writing at the end of the month. Mercury might be getting into that supercharged position where they're able to, yeah, just write quickly about a lot, you know? So have fun with that. And what am I missing? On the 30th, I don't know if I forgot to pull up the Viking meme that says pick fewer battles. That's still too many. Put some of the battles down. That's still too many battles. So we're getting Mars, trine, Neptune, which at best can be inspired action. Very like spiritually motivated, brave and courageous actions. And I think it can be really beautiful in that way. It's like the effort, the motivation is coming in to this really imaginal place, but also this place of acceptance and a oneness and spiritual unity. And it also could be misguided, misdirected, courageous efforts. So the best to our ability, it's not always, it's not always the case that we can do this, but before you kind of dive in and be the hero, ask if someone needs saving. They don't always need saving. It's better if it's a consensual thing. So that might be the case around the end of the month. If you feel all of a sudden just like very inspired to act in a brave way, just make sure you have all your facts straight. And in America, with the current political environment, yeah, this could be some people acting, speaking in some misguided ways. And I know that usually we think about trines as more positive or favorable outcome type of energy, but I think trines can sometimes just be free flowing energy for better or for worse. And if the ingredients are suspect, then the whole thing is suspect. And the ingredients being the planets. If the planets are potentially suspect, yeah, then I'm going to be giving a little bit of skepticism to that, even if it's a trine. So again, at the end of October, main headline there, really beautiful time of courageous, inspired action. Just make sure it's going in the right direction with the right information behind it. And then this is getting to also, this is more into November, but both Mercury and Mars have to move over this Uranus opposition, which can be a time of instability, volatility, lack of kind of continuousness it's like I'm trying to do an action and I just keep getting interrupted. So at best, it's interruptions, disruptions. It could even be happy accidents. At worst, it is like someone is trying to do a very specific strategic thing and stuff keeps getting in the way. So, as we move into November, uh, there's a little bit of instability coming in. That is worth being careful around. So just move slower, I would say. Start moving a little slower and carefully starting on like the 29th, 30th. Still, I think safe to go out and do whatever you want to do, but yeah, just be a little extra mindful. And we've made it to our Halloween report. So, for those of you who celebrate, it is spooky season, and we're going to have a Pisces moon. Now, if anyone remembers Valens saying that Pisces is, I'm pretty sure he said they're like somewhat untrustworthy, but also sexy and popular. So it's time to be sexy and popular, everyone. Put on your cute little outfits, get ready, go out to your parties. It's fun. Uh, we are going to have the nice mutual reception between Moon and Jupiter for the month. We get one every month. So here's our one for the month. It just imparts this quality of things working out a little better. This helps to buffer us a little bit against the aforementioned instability I was just talking about. That's still here. But the moon, for a couple days, I think the moon is going to hold down the fort with Jupiter and protect us from a little bit of that. Um, let's see, hydrate, take breaks. So here's the problem with Pisces, especially with Rahu, which we were talking so long ago, like many hours ago, about how the North Node is blurred boundaries. So be careful out there with your drinks. This is always good advice, always to watch your drinks when you're out. This night is no exception. Definitely watch your drinks on this evening, on the 31st and 1st. Watch your space around you, just be aware of your space around you, so that there's no blurring of boundaries that aren't supposed to be blurred. This is a good time to check your party favors. If you are into having party favors at the parties, you got to make sure that they came from party store official or whatever. So if you need to put some Narcan in your bag for the night, that's a great little addition for your purse or your backpack. Check your party favors. Make sure they're what you think they are. And other people sometimes don't know what they're talking about. So read the room. If it doesn't look like what they say it is, it probably isn't. Uh, Uranus and Neptune, they're around. And so there's whimsy. There's novelty, there's whimsy, there's delights. But it can be not the most stable atmosphere. So what night is that? That's Friday night. Then Saturday. There's kind of a Cinderella situation on Saturday. The moon is going to be in kind of nice shape because they're going to have this benefic enclosure, this really quick one. I think that's a benefic enclosure. I don't think anything interrupts it, but then they're going to meet Saturn like immediately after. And so that feels like we're having a good time. We're having a good time. It's Saturday night. And then we hit a wall. This is no longer fun anymore. Or, wow, this party just dropped off and it is no longer fun. Let's go. And that happens. It's kind of great timing. It's about 1:15 a.m. Central Time. That's when the moon exactly meets Jupiter. So at 1:15 a.m. Central Time that'd be like the second then. Yeah, here. So the moon is moving into Saturn. They're still really close to Jupiter though. So I don't think it's going to be like, all of a sudden the party turns from the best to the worst. I just think the night's going to slow down like at a fairly rapid rate. Or maybe the thing is quit while you're ahead. If you think that leaving at midnight is too early and you're going to miss out, I don't think you will. I don't think you'll miss out on that much. Or maybe if you leave by like 12:30 Central Time. So yeah, then by like 12:30, yeah, that might be a good time to leave while you're ahead. So that's my report. It starts off cool, but it ends with Saturn, who is sleepy and tired and old and probably wants to go home. Oh, and then let's see. This was the dating thing at the end of the month. There's a dating warning at the end of the month. I like Venus in Libra, of course. But what I don't like, and this is more into November, but this is close enough because I don't care. Close enough. Venus square Pluto. I do not like relationships starting during Venus square Pluto. It is control and power dynamics and relationships and manipulation or distortions or yeah, just all manner of things that I wouldn't choose for myself or for anyone I love with relationship. And that's like kind of around Halloween, but it's a little bit after Halloween. So like if you meet someone cool at a party at the end of the month, they're on probation for a while. Keep them on probation for a while. Uh, yeah. Oh yeah, gross. Chiron is here too. Nope, not on my watch. I don't care if Jupiter is here. Uh, if this were me, and maybe, okay, let me back up. Let me make a good example of this. Maybe you've had a rough time with romance and you meet someone at the end of October who is transformative and healing. And they're like, there's someone who has their shit together and they're a super safe person and they're amazing in every way and they're healing. That could be this, but I don't know. I don't, that's not my first option. It's like we've got two really positive factors and two potentially really icky ones that at best are transformative healing and at worst are everything you don't want. So threat level orange. It's not a threat level red because the benefics are in really good shape, but I still don't love it. Be careful about dating until like November 8th ish. I want Venus to get off of this square and away from Pluto, separating from Pluto. We want her separating from Pluto. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that more next month, but it was kind of on the line and I wanted to give people a little bit of warning before we get there. So that was my only other kind of red flag for the whole month. That was a dating red flag. Gosh, when is that? Hold on. One last thing. Yeah, no, that's not coming into play during Halloween. Well, it kind of is. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Okay, I'm gonna see if I missed any notes, but I think that's pretty much everything I had. Last call if anyone has any questions. Yeah, that's everything. Tapestry of Intrigue, thanks for coming to the party. Uh, we have it recorded. So, yeah, Saturn really does love to say no. They sure do. And they say it in soft ways and sometimes harsh ways. Thank you everyone for hanging out. That was, yeah, I had been really pumped on myself. The last two of these I've done, I got out of here in about an hour, and now I'm back up to my old ways of being here for almost 3 or 2.5. So, all right, thanks everyone. And if there's any questions, you know where to find me. My email is aligninglight@gmail.com. You can book me if you enjoy how I talk about things. Granted, I'm kind of loosey-goosey here compared to what I am in session. A little bit more focused, and I have specific things I like to look at for people. But if you would like to experience that, you can book me at www.aligninglightastrology.com. I have a discount code, thank you 10. If you're listening to this now or you get to this later, you earned it. 10% off. Thank you, 10 as the discount code. I also have a sliding scale. I haven't been doing as many discount codes lately, but that's because I'm trying to tell people more about my sliding scale, which is a different option where you can pay a more flexible amount. And it's usually, I mean, anywhere from half off to sometimes even more. I have more information about that on my website at www.aligninglightastrology.com. That's going to be mostly for people who are in a difficult situation financially where they cannot afford basic needs, like you cannot feed yourself easily or pay your rent easily. Then that is, the sliding scale is for you if you're struggling under capitalism. I think astrology is extremely helpful, and I don't want money to get in the way of that. But also, let's say you're doing fine financially, but you have been oppressed by our oppressive systems. You also get my sliding scale. So that's my way of giving back, my way of trying to kind of cultivate community and share resources, including my skills. So you can set that up. It's pretty, I usually, what I do is I like send people a discount code they can use for themselves. Um, so email me. That's how you sign up for that. aligninglighastro@gmail.com if you want to use my sliding scale. That's how you get that going. Otherwise, it's all just normal booking on my website. And then of course I have all my monthly writings and or videos that I do that try to focus in on one particular topic for the month. I think I might take a break on those for a month. I really want to work on my research and I keep having other things come up. So, sorry about that. No rising sign horoscopes for a minute, but I'm doing other stuff. Um, I think that's it. Let me make sure. Oh, I have my mutual aid highlights below as well. I love the bail funds these days. I first thought it was just like there was one bail fund, but there's actually like states, certain states have their own bail funds. There's different organizations that have bail funds, and it helps people to not be imprisoned needlessly or at all, hopefully. So you can check that out below. And that's it. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. October. It's very exciting. I'm very excited for the Taurus and Libra parts of our charts. I am also very excited about Mars and Scorpio, but I don't dare tell people how to use that unless like you're in session with me. It's too sharp to give people general advice on, so I didn't. I hope that's okay. All right, I love you. Best of luck. Have a good month. Take care of yourselves.